Wesley is simply showing himself to be alert and responsible. Something to be encouraged. Come, you can watch everything I do.
Recommend that you do not let him roam the ship freely.
Shut Wesley!
Not if I have a choice.
Shut up, Wesley.
Agreed. Wesley is simply showing himself to be alert. Agreed.
This is the Utterly Nonsense Podcast, a weekly show where, well, you know the rest. How many times do I have to say it before you get the point? If you're a subscriber, you know what I'm going to say. If you're new, well then, get to know us, listen to this whole podcast, and you'll find out some things about us. You'll find out some things about entertainment, which is what we talk about, and it'll always be free.
But of course, if you're subscribed to us on YouTube already, you probably already knew that. If you're not already subscribed to us on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube, because every little bit counts. We're a small channel. We're always growing. We're coming to some more subscribers lately, so welcome if you're returning. Otherwise...
welcome, my fellow American.
Otherwise, thanks for clicking on this thing, and yeah, do your thing. Subscribe, listen to more. Yeah.
Notification bell, etc., whatever YouTubers say these days. I don't know what the hell. The website's always changing and making it worse in terms of how you can get a following. But anyway, we got a few things this week. We got some season finales in some of the DC shows. We got some previews of upcoming shows, and we got some news about other ongoing or upcoming shows. Basically all shows this week. So the first thing I guess we could talk about is something we have both seen, which is the season 5 finale of The Flash.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you want to start us off, or do you have any specific thoughts on it? Or
specific thoughts, not really, I guess, other than the very, very end, when, spoilers if you haven't seen it, we take a look once again at the newspaper in the time room, or whatever it's called, the Barthon Vault, and the newspaper changes once more. This time, not text on it, but the date changes from 2024 to 2019, which, as you know, in the comics, the Flash, or Barry Allen, does actually sacrifice himself in the original Crisis on Infinite Earths. So this is kind of leading me to think that it's hinting at that, but considering we know that Arrow is ending, and what we see at the end of the Arrow season finale, which we will get to in a bit, it could also, I think it might change to say maybe Green Arrow vanishes in Crisis, but yeah, it could still be the Flash, and maybe he comes back or whatever, but yeah. So
again, I haven't followed Arrow closely enough to actually have any strong opinions about how that's going to end. I guess this was the end of it, right? So just getting into the Flash of it all.
Well, it's season 8 will be 10 episodes, and that'll be the end.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it logically. I think if Crisis on Infinite Earths is supposed to happen around the same time as Elseworlds, so like mid-October, that wouldn't make sense to end the season that early and just end with Barry disappearing into like wherever he disappears into. It just wouldn't stand to reason that it would happen that early in the season. Chances are that if you were to disappear, it would be, well, I guess it would have to be then if it was 2019. So it probably does stand to reason, but I feel like that's going to play into it to some extent, Crisis on Infinite Earths. I feel like I'm rambling here. Like, did any of that make sense, or did I just talk about the exact same thing for a minute straight?
Well, I think you're saying about the time that they're taking place close to each other. When the crisis will happen will be in like December of 2019. So, around the time that it premieres on TV, that's generally how they go with the timelines. So like, whereas Elseworlds happened at the end of 18, Infinite Earths will happen at the end of 19. And so I'll just get into it now. So at the very end of the Arrow season finale, we see the Monitor come back and he meets Oliver and he says, "Remember that deal you made with me during the Elseworlds debacle?" Basically, he made a deal to save, Barry and Supergirl. And
right.
the Monitor said to him, whatever the multiverse wants, it has to get. You know, it has to claim something. It can't get nothing out of this. So essentially he says, the upcoming whatever crisis, you're not going to survive it. And now it's time for me to take you away so we can do whatever you made the deal to do. And so he whisks him away from his little cottage home where he has his wife and his newborn baby. And it's a, teary scene and all that. So I don't know. Season 8 of Arrow, who knows what's going to happen? It might just be him and the Monitor hopping around different dimensions or other Earths doing who knows what. And that will definitely lead into and end with the Infinite Earths crossover, where, like I said, we don't know. Will the Flash disappear? Has the timeline been moved up? Because as the Reverse Flash says at the end, the timeline has been changed once again. No more Nora Allen. She's gone.
Yeah, I mean,
she's not going to exist.
So I will say, speculation about the next season and all things considered, the one thing that really bugged me about the season finale of The Flash was the whole way they handled time travel. And I mean, this is an ongoing complaint for me, but it's like, I know people have been giving Endgame so much shit for how they handled time travel, but at least that, I feel like that makes sense to some extent. With The Flash, just parts of it just like the fact is, if Nora never existed, none of that could have happened. It falls into the whole grandfather paradox of it all. Like, it just makes absolutely no sense that they could remember her, that she could have had any sort of impact that would have led to her not existing,
Well, I think they might be going a little more of the Endgame route, especially since in Infinity War Endgame style, we see her dissolve. Like, literally the exact same effect, but more glowy. I think it's more of a flexible branching timeline system where, like, there's an original timeline at some point, and then a change is made, and then it doesn't kind of undo itself. It just becomes a new timeline, like the Reverse Flash said. So instead of it overriding something and then grandfather paradoxing it, it just becomes a new timeline that is created by the change made due to something in the future of the original timeline existing.
Okay, and that's fine. Like, if they want to go that route, that's fine. But then she couldn't possibly disappear, because then her timeline no longer exists, meaning the grandfather paradox does have an effect, meaning she ceased to exist. So, I mean, it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. You have to pick one, like, time travel mechanism,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about time travel, Barry. I feel like I've said this so many times, because I have. Because
you have said it a bunch of times, yeah.
The whole thing with this show, with manipulating time, it's like, I don't know, they get to a point where they make the rules. Essentially, that's what they mean by that line, and that's why I keep saying it. The writers are making the rules of time travel as they go, so it really isn't logical to analyze it in any sort of, linear thought process. It's just whatever they want to happen is going to happen.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate, because it kind of throws a wrench in the whole, like, shared continuity thing. Yeah, I mean, that's all I really had to say about The Flash. Like, I think we sort of knew from the outset of the last episode, the second to last episode of the season, that, like, Eobard Thawne was going to escape, that he was probably going to be the big bad of the next season. So
how the heck is he still alive, though? Because this is clearly the original Eobard Thawne from season 1 of The Flash. He makes reference to remembering it. He looks like Harrison Wells, which also doesn't make sense, because he looked like did he? Did he look like his original self at the end of season 1?
Yeah, for whatever reason, he lost the blonde hair, which they don't really explain, do they?
No, like, what was the actor that played the real Eobard Thawne?
I have no idea, actually. I have to look that up. I have no idea who played the original Eobard.
Okay, for some reason, I'm thinking that he was, playing Reverse Flash at the end of season 1, but I think that might have just been flashbacks. So yeah, this is still Harrison Wells version, and how is he there? I don't know. I guess he just makes a million copies of himself all the time. He, like, saves himself on backup hard drives.
Yeah, it's like he reboots to the last, like, viable version of himself every time the timeline resets. Throw in the negative speed force.
Yeah, I read somewhere, because I was actually reading up on the history or timeline of Eobard Thawne in the comics. something about the negative speed force just allows him to regenerate no matter what happens.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Lobo or Deadpool where they can regenerate from a drop of blood. It's just, they're never going away.
Yeah, again, it just seems like a lazy storytelling device. The name of the actor who plays the original Eobard Thawne, by the way, is Matt Lesher.
Okay, yeah.
I could not name a single other thing he's been in, because this is like by far his most well-known role.
So let's think. He died at the end of Flash Season 1. He died at the end of Season 2 of Legends of Tomorrow. When else? Did he die in the Crisis on Earth X crossover?
Yeah, but that was... Wait, was that him, or was that like the Earth X version of him? Or wait,
he had the Harrison Wells face.
That's right. Okay,
and,
yeah. So that was our version of him, but he like traveled to... I don't know. It gets confusing when you throw in all the alternative timelines, but essentially it's an unkillable villain, which... he's probably the best villain the Flash has ever had, but it still gets boring after a while, you know?
Like I said, it just becomes illogical because they're making the rules as they go, and he's too good to write off indefinitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so who knows? The Crisis is going to be interesting. Obviously, I think the purpose of it is to bring all the shows into one Earth, but we'll see if they actually do that, because that means Black Lightning has to join in.
Well, I mean, as of right now, the only show that has shown to be like directly involved with the Arrowverse that is not on this main Earth is Supergirl. So I don't know. It wouldn't really make much sense to drag her into all of it. So I don't know. Like, continuity is a hell of a thing. Like, I really don't know what they're going to do with Crisis on Infinite Earths. If it's just going to be a soft reboot of the whole thing. Yeah, without a doubt. But I don't think they're going to drag her in any sort of significant way, just because like so much of the Supergirl world is irreplaceable. Like, it's not like you could just take her and facelift her into another universe and just expect like that fan base to be okay with that.
Well, ideally they would just get rid of her completely.
Yep. Okay.
Well, speaking of female spin-offs of main heroes, we have seen the Batwoman trailer. They put it out on Twitter. I don't know if it's on YouTube, but you could probably find it there.
It probably is, yeah.
Yeah. So this is going to be its own show. I'm thinking probably after Arrow finishes, so maybe starting in January of next year. I don't know.
I feel like they probably did say the date in the trailer, but I'm completely spacing out on it. I would have to guess it would be around the same time that the fall TV season actually comes back up. So probably like September, October.
So looking at this trailer, for me, like pretty much what you'd expect from one of these CW shows at this point. I mean, they're pretty formulaic.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of a thing that sticks out to you. What do you think I mean here?
Okay.
What kind of just jumps out at you, kind of says, hey, you know what this is? You know what we're getting at here?
So I feel like anyone who followed our Captain Marvel coverage is going to get what we're getting at here.
Yes. It needs her.
Yeah.
Hero.
So I do want to say, for the most part, I actually did like the trailer. For the most part, I liked the character. For the most part, I liked like what we saw of the character in the Arrowverse so far, just in Elseworlds. Like, they go to her briefly in one of the versions of the crossover. Like, she takes place in the main Earth. Like, she's on the Flash Arrow Earth. So I guess that's Earth 1 or Earth 0 or whatever it is. So for the most part, I like Ruby Rose's portrayal of her. Like, I have nothing against the actress, but and again, I feel like based off of that performance, this series is probably going to be, it's not going to be an exact repeat of Captain Marvel, just because we do have this strong portrayal. It seems like the creators do know what they're like getting at. It's just, the marketing.
Yes.
So
the marketing once again.
Again, if they just didn't focus on the whole feminist angle, if they just let the trailer play out and show that there was the strong female hero in the Arrowverse, that would have been great, you know? But it's like just the fact that they have to like just stick it in your face, the fact that they have to make it that prominent of a detail. Did
you catch it in some of the lines too? Like when she says, I'm not going to let a man take credit for doing a woman's job, or that suit will look good or will be perfect when it fits a woman, yada, yada, woman, yada, yada.
And that's the only line that really bugged me, you know? Like, I mean,
like, whoa, hold on. man take credit for woman's job. You are taking all of Batman's work and just co-opting
Yeah,
it.
like literally makes no sense in the context of the
You're
trailer.
taking his cape, you're taking his gadgets, you're taking his persona. Hello, but I know what the context is. She's saying like she's gonna put on the suit and start doing things, and people are saying, "Oh, look, Batman's back," and then that's when she says it.
Yeah, probably. But
you
again,
could
it doesn't come
almost
off well in the
interpret it
trailer,
the other
though,
way.
yeah. No, it comes off as being, oh, hey, I'm so much better than the other men in this universe that I just don't give any credit to them. It's all me, you know.
Yeah.
Which again is sort of the Captain Marvel tragedy, and you'd think they would have learned their lesson from that, but apparently not.
And at the risk of sounding stupid, because this may or may not be stupid, but clearly we are shown she's a lesbian, and that's how she is in the comics, and that's all well and good.
Yeah, which is fine. Like, they do it well. It's tasteful. Yeah.
Does she really have to do the whole feminist thing? Like, while she's I don't know. Do lesbians really do the feminist thing? Like, I don't know. It just seems weird to me.
I don't know.
Because she has her hair cut short like a guy, and her personality seems, pretty guy-ish.
Yeah, pretty butch.
And yet the show is being marketed as a feminist thing. It just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't sit right in my brain. Something is misaligned.
I will say, I think that stereotype is like pretty accurate. Like, just for example, my one teacher in college, like my one professor in college, was very much a lesbian feminist, like very much Ruby Rose, but not like as outward about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was,
I guess I just haven't seen this kind of thing before, so it's a little weird to me.
So, I mean, that stereotype definitely does exist in reality. It's just, I don't know, for them to put that to the forefront, for them to sort of, like, force that stereotype is a little weird.
And I will say this, disclaimer, I haven't read a single Batwoman comic. I know barely anything about her other than the origin that I researched and talked about the last time we talked about the Elseworlds crossover. So, this may be accurate to what's in the comics, I don't know. But on the surface level, just from looking at the trailer, just from her personality, she seems a bit pompous to me.
Yeah, no, she's a little full of herself.
Which I don't really like that much. I know you're going to say, oh, you like Iron Man, and he's a pompous ass all the time. It's different.
It's a little bit earned there, you know?
He has a right to be, all right? He's like the smartest guy on the planet.
Yeah, without a doubt. Which, I guess you could almost make the argument that it is she is the female Batman, you know? Like, she does sort of give off that persona to some extent, except Bruce Wayne's never really, like, bat over the top with it. At least when he's inheriting the cowl, he's a little more relaxed about the whole thing.
Yeah, imagine if he went around saying, I'm not going to let Superman do a Batman's job or take credit for a Batman's job.
Yeah, it would just sound sort of braggy. So, I mean...
this watchtower will look perfect with a Batman in it.
So, I mean, it does fall into a lot of the Captain Marvel traps. You know, it does sort of fall into a lot of the... they're trying to elevate this female character, which, again, on its own is fine, but the fact that they're sort of overcompensating for a lack of character development, it's problematic. You know, the fan base is not going to react well to this. And, again, we talked about this a lot with Captain Marvel, so I feel like I'm major deja vu here.
Well, or they might, because, again, these things are present in Captain Marvel, and then there it goes and makes $1 billion.
True, but, again, we're talking about television versus film.
Again, some people might just ignore this. Or most people might ignore this, but I didn't see if this turns out to be like Supergirl, you cannot ignore this.
Yeah.
If it's like Supergirl, that is a tragedy, because that show is it's almost a parody of itself in terms of how ridiculous they go with the feminist angles.
No, it definitely is. Like, at least since the first season, they've gone over the top with it, like to the point where they know that that's their core audience, so they can just like milk it as much as they want. Yeah, I mean, we again, with just to throw Captain Marvel into it, and I hate to keep coming back to this just because it is sort of a polarizing subject. I think the issue with it was that it did become a polarizing issue because it was so controversial. You had a lot of the uber feminists and a lot of the moderates who didn't want to be associated with the man babies of the world, like going to see this thing because, you know, that's just sort of what they thought was the right thing to do. Meanwhile, it's got the lowest fan score of any Marvel film to date. Now, the fact is, like, this is a television program we're talking about here, Batwoman. So, you know, if you have low approval ratings among the fan, it's not like a one-time thing. If they are disappointed with the first episode, no one's going to follow through, like, throughout the series. So, you know, it's a different sort of thing we're talking about. I don't think it's gone to the same lengths as Captain Marvel in its attempt to sort of alienate the male fan base, but I don't know. It's not a promising that this is the marketing campaign they're going for.
The reason why I think arguments even happen with things like this is because there definitely are people clearly out there who feel that, there isn't enough equality or that there isn't enough representation in media. And, I get that. You want to see more things that you would like to identify with personally. That's fine. But when it's marketed in a way that it almost kind of, I don't know, not guilt trips, but like points out a problem that most people, I would say, don't feel really exists. Like, look, finally, she's here. What we needed, a female hero. This is it. And it's like, well, we've seen this before. I mean, we had the Wonder Woman show in the 70s. This has happened before. It's not a new thing. And I think when people point it out, like, why is it being marketed as if this is something special and unique for the first time? Then that's when, the counter arguments come back saying, well, you just don't like it because you're this and you're that. And then they get defensive and then, everything is conflated.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to the whole identity issue. People are so self-concerned with their own identity. People are so insecure about their own identity that they feel the need to sort of attack anyone else who sort of brings up the subject in anything other than a completely supporting way. So,
yeah,
I mean, and, just going on the whole representation issue, it's so heavily debated in the world of media, like what constitutes representation. If there are more female characters on a show, but they're more two-dimensional, is that good representation or is it bad representation? The fact is, it's such a minefield of issues that there's really not a clear answer, So with this sort of show, and, we've talked about what makes a good female protagonist in the past, ultimately, what makes a good female protagonist is just making her a good protagonist who also happens to be female. You don't have to...
exactly.
It's not more complicated than that, but it just seems to be something that screenwriters tend to struggle with.
You can do it. You can do a good story about a female protagonist where a large part of her journey or whatever is struggling as a female, but then that is a specific one-note story. That is one story. I don't know if you can stretch that out for season after season after season. You know what I mean? There's a movie coming out, or it's already about Ruth Bader Ginsburg,
right? RPG,
right? And
I think that's been out for a while.
The angle they go on is she's one of the only female politicians in Congress, and okay, that makes sense, but that's one story.
Yeah, that's also not.
How are you going to make it a whole
she's one of the first major not congresswoman. She's not a congresswoman. She's in the Supreme Court. She's, I think, the second woman to serve in the Supreme Court. So
I hear she's as old as Yoda.
That threw me off. Yeah, she's 85 or something at this point.
Well, hanging fruit. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, I mean, it's just ironic when you consider they're trying to make these multi-dimensional characters, but the problem is when you make a female character that only focuses on women's issues, that is by definition two-dimensional. If her whole character arc is that she's a woman and she has to deal with woman problems, it gets boring really fast. I don't know why screenwriters don't realize that. They're writing themselves into a corner.
Well, this time she's also a lesbian.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I'll probably give it a shot, few episodes, but I don't really see myself as sticking with this. Not because of the woman thing, it's just because, I don't know. In general, I'm kind of tired of these CW shows, and I'm glad Arrow is ending.
Yeah.
And Flash, I don't know. It's on and off with how good. You know what I'm tired of? I'm tired of the whole team dynamic. I don't want it to be a team show. I watch it for the Flash. It's called The Flash. I want to see The Flash. I watch Arrow for Green Arrow. I want to see Green Arrow. But they just put so much time into these side characters, and
yeah,
it pisses me off.
Cisco's basically gone at this point, so there's something.
Yeah. Oh, a Killer Frost episode. No, I don't care.
Yeah.
Or a Ralph Dibny episode. No, well, he's okay.
Honestly, I like all of the characters individually, but the fact that they're sort of, I don't know, it throws off the whole dynamic when it's supposed to be a show about this one character and it's basically a team show, It's
look, Iris West to the rescue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's trying to form the Justice League out of just a Batman show,
Imagine if the Justice League was constantly aided by all their love interests. Presenting the team of Iris West, Lois Lane, and Steve Trevor. They are normal people.
Yeah,
with
basically.
Guns, maybe. Sometimes a cell phone.
Okay, so just to get on some lighter news real quick, and I know we didn't talk about this. It just occurred to me like while we were talking about all the Batman stuff. I don't know if you saw this. Kevin Conroy tweeted this out in response to this whole Rocksteady tweet about them hiring a bunch of new guys. Hey guys, congrats on the new jobs. Now let's get to work and create more Arkham.
Yes, it's time for Arkham Beyond. Right?
That'd be cool, but if he's like directly involved with it, it's probably not going to be a Terry McGinnis story. That would be cool.
Well,
though.
He could always be Bruce. He could be old Bruce.
Yeah, which would be fun.
Come on, Arkham Beyond. We've done Batman's story. Arkham Knight ended off that Batman is gone. It's time for a new Batman. Pick up years later with Terry McGinnis. It is time. Give us the cyberpunk Gotham City. Give us the flying car Batmobile. Give us the jet boots. Come on.
Yeah.
Please.
For what it's worth, I like the Beyond suit is sort of my go-to in Arkham Knight. It's such a cool suit. Like, it clearly works in that medium. I feel like they could easily rework the whole cyberpunk dynamic into like this version of Gotham. So
think about the verticality they could have. It wouldn't even have to be as wide as Arkham Knight if they didn't want to go that route, but they could add a ton of verticality to it.
Yeah, no, it would be cool for sure.
And a lot more depth to the city.
Yeah.
Just think of all the detail. Come on. This Gotham City, or what was it called? Neo Gotham, was like a retro future version of the late 90s with all the, the punk metal and the splicing and all that.
It's sort of what, like, I think people in the mid 90s thought that the future was going to be.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
like what you see in the Matrix, kind of.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I guess they're probably not going to be too far off. Like, I could see gene splicing being a thing in like 20 years,
And then we're going to get laws about it. Laws about what you can and cannot do with your body.
Yeah, which is worth talking about. Like, I don't want to get too political in this whole thing. Like, after we're done recording, I can talk about the whole Alabama thing. But,
Alabama.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's all I got to say about that. I'm honestly psyched because Arkham is just undeniably awesome. Like, even Return to Arkham, not Return to Arkham, Arkham Origins, which I think is probably the weakest game in the series. Still an awesome game. Still, like, just a lot of fun. Yeah. So, yeah. I know you had a few other topics. We got a few minutes left if you want to dive into any of those.
Yeah, well, one thing real quickly is some bad news, apparently, just out of nowhere, because I didn't realize Season 2 of The Tick was already out at the beginning of April. April 5th, Season 2 came out on Amazon Prime Video.
Right.
And I guess it didn't get them as many new subscribers as they wanted, because they didn't tell anyone that it was out, or maybe they did, and my eyes were closed.
Well,
but Season 2, or the show, will not get a Season 3 now. They say it's canceled. Why?
Yeah, so I mean...
Why? Because I just said...
So for what it's worth, I watched the first season of The Tick. I didn't know it was coming out this year, the second season. I just watched the first season last year, Yeah. It shocks me, first of all, that it came this soon, and it shocks me that they, released it without giving any warning. Because, of course, the fan base isn't going to watch if they don't know it's up, of course, there's not going to be a third season if there's low ratings because, it's just a bunch of steps that they completely avoided. And I don't know what the mentality is there.
Yeah, well, I remember there was a trailer a while back, but that was months ago.
Yeah, and that seemed like it came right after the release of the first season, it feels like they've been building up to it for a while, but I don't know, it just completely missed the fan base by.
Yeah, well, the whole release schedule was weird because they released the pilot, and then it took them months before they started releasing the rest of the episodes because they did pilot first to see if it would have interest. Then they finished Season 1. I'm not sure when, but I know you saw it after I did, and I saw it after it already finished.
Yeah, no, I mean, I watched it all pretty much as soon as the entire series was out. So again, this was probably last summer I binged the entire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I gotta say, first of all, the first season was awesome. A lot of good comedy, a lot of good character development. Just, for all intents and purposes, it's the perfect superhero series. If you're into this sort of thing, watch The Tick, But
coming off of, because I've seen a few episodes of the Tick cartoon from the 90s, it's Tick's personality is almost exactly the same, and that's what I thought was so great about it. That they just got him so right. He's goofy, he's heroic to a fault. It's just funny.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, yeah, I mean, this comes as a complete surprise to me that they're canceling the thing. I don't know what else to say. Like, it just feels like it's coming out of nowhere.
It sucks. It's like with Ash versus Evil Dead. It's such a good thing, and for it to stop so early, I don't know.
Yeah.
It feels unsatisfying, even though I haven't even watched it yet, but I will. I will be watching it now.
It's just devastating, that it's just being canned out of nowhere. But I'm definitely going to watch the second season. I mean, hopefully, like, just with this influx, with people finding out that they're canceling it, maybe that'll bring enough news to the fact that the second season actually came out to get people to watch it.
You know what this must mean? This must mean that the CEO of Amazon is none other than Chairface Chippendale.
Yeah.
The dastardly evil bastard.
Honestly, Jeff Bezos is just, a prick.
Yeah, well, it sucks.
Yeah.
But maybe it'll come back in the future at some point. Remember they had that short-lived series with, what's his name? The guy who played David Putty on Seinfeld.
Yeah, Patrick Warburton.
Patrick Warburton.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was like only 8 episodes it got on Fox. It was a sitcom with the Tick. I don't remember that being that good, though.
I don't know. I never watched it. I knew he was in the role, which I could totally see. I just never got into it.
The Tick has had a history of some short runs.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. So finally, the last thing, kind of continuing something that we had the last time we had an episode, Star Trek stuff. The Picard series, they're pushing the fact that it's in production now. They've shown us the logo for it. It's Picard with the Starfleet symbol in place of the A. And it's called Star Trek Picard. That's the official title. They have there's leaked images. You see Picard himself. He looks, well, basically as Patrick Stewart does, a little old, but he doesn't have the beard like in that one future episode from Next Generation, All Good Things. Mm-hmm. We see some Starfleet uniforms. They look exactly like they do in Voyager, so like mostly black with the colors at the top, which is strange because that deviates a bit from the last we see of them in Star Trek Nemesis. So I don't know what's going on there, if it's an alternate timeline or, I don't know, just an aesthetic alteration.
I mean, for continuity's sake, I wouldn't be shocked if they said it was an alternative timeline. Of course, at this point, there's so much in the Star Trek universe that it would just make sense to sort of split into, like, they don't want to destroy the continuity, so of course it would make sense to branch into alternative timelines. Like, that's probably a good excuse to build onto the whole series. So that makes me wonder. So it is Patrick Stewart actually playing Picard. Like, it's not just some replacement actor, first of all, right? Uh-huh. Okay, so, I mean, that's going to be cool, Like, it's going to be interesting to see if it picks up from the Next Generation. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the character, what's changed over there. Like,
well, what we know so far is that the story is post-destruction of Romulus, which was the whole catalyst for the start of the 2009 film. Mm-hmm. So this is set in, I guess, the Kelvin timeline, sort of, in that it's the original timeline that one branched off of, which they claim is the quote-unquote prime timeline, but people debate if that's actually the truth, and if it's not just, like, there's a prime timeline, the Kelvin timeline, and then there's original timeline, which was all the original series, and then the prime timeline, aka the original one that the Kelvin one branched off of, is its own thing, because of the whole licensing deal with Paramount and everything. It's still a mess. Nobody could figure it out. And so the last part about this was that Picard, internationally, will not be on Netflix like Discovery. It will be on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Which is strange. But I guess I kind of understand it, because I know Netflix was kind of pissed that they paid so much for season 1 for the distribution rights, and it didn't get nearly as many subscribers as they wanted out of it. So I think they just didn't want the rights to this show, and so CBS had to shop around and give it to Amazon. That's my opinion on it, of why it's changed like that.
Okay. So I hate to drag us on here. I hate to cut you off. They just cast the new Batman in the Matt Reeves Batman film, so I think that's probably worth talking about just for our last couple seconds here.
So who is our new Batman?
Robert Pattinson, the Twilight guy.
I will ask again. Who is our Batman?
The guy from Twilight.
Have I gone deaf, or did I just imagine that?
No, I'm dead serious. That's actually him. He was just cast as Batman in the Matt Reeves Batman.
Are you sure?
I'm absolutely sure. This comes from Variety. It's pretty reliable. Yeah, so I have mixed feelings on him as an actor. He looks the part, I'll say that much.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
I'm going to stay optimistic about the whole thing, yeah.
I just can't see his face as Bruce Wayne. No.
Yeah.
Even when people were talking shit about Ben Affleck, I thought at the time that he looks like a Bruce Wayne, but Robert Pattinson?
Well, think young Bruce Wayne. Think Bruce Wayne at the beginning of his career. You know, like, he's got the jawline. He's got the sort of classic, handsome, whatever you want to call that. I can see it. I can see it on appearance alone. I just don't know if the guy has enough of an acting career to actually pull off a role like that, you know?
I'm looking at a picture of him. Well, here's problem number one. His hair isn't even black, but I guess they'll just color it.
Yeah, no, I like the picture I'm looking at right now has it as a jet black thing. I don't know if that was just, like, dyed to look that way, if it was photoshopped, or if it's just, like, you know, him having dyed his hair that way for a role in the past.
Well, yeah, he does have the jawline, actually.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a handsome enough guy that he sort of pulls off the sort of classic Bruce Wayne look. So I could see it from that
actually,
respect.
you know what's funny? He played a vampire, and now he's playing another bat-themed creature.
Okay, yeah. No, that's a good point.
All right, I guess I'll try to keep an open mind, but initial reaction is, well, as you heard, it's
Okay.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. That's everything we have to say on this week of Utterly Nonsense. And as always, you can listen to full episodes on the podcast, any platform you can find us, which includes YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Google Music. And you can watch clip segments during the week on the YouTube channel. And you can also check us out on social media because we post videos when we upload them, unlike Amazon. Although I wasn't following that particular thing on Twitter, so they might have done it and I just missed it.
Yeah.
Anyway, as always, I'm John, and that's CJ. And it's not news, it's nonsense.
8-bit music, play us out.
There's evil afoot!